Hello, Adventures in LARPing fans. Here we are at Cather Castle, and behind me is an actual tower prison cell. We're going to see just a little bit more here as we go up the stairs. I have not yet been up these stairs, and I don't think we can get very far. Ah, another jail cell. And more stairs. That's pretty darn cool. This is inside the wall, the outer wall at Cather Castle. Alright, Adventures in LARPing fans. I was looking at this for a little bit. It's a jail cell. Turns out it is a secret passage. So we are going to head up the secret passage. And this is real small. And I am not real small. Oh, there is light at the end of the tunnel. I'm really hoping there's not some large boss creature up here, because I am not prepared for that. Oh, but instead, we have a tower overlooking the water. Pan across the cool castle. Secret staircase unlocked.
Adventures in LARPing, everybody. Today we have Sean Keys, Chris Glover, Courtney Manor, and Stanford.
You
know, with as many days as Ann Stanford has been hanging out in the studio now,
and I'm bad with names.
During the week, the rest of us go home. We come back and Ann is still here. It's kind of creepy. So here's our question of the day. A lot of games will have rule systems. Some will have very simple rules. Some will have very complex rules. Some are variations and mixes. When you guys are playing a game, where do you like your simplicity, complexity? How do you like rule systems to flow?
Well, my ideal system is WYSIWYG. It's a little acronym that means what you see is what you get. So if you are 5 feet tall, your character is 5 feet tall.
Okay.
So it sort of limits the amount of things that you can do.
Okay.
You can't say, I'm an 800-year-old vampire that is 20 feet tall and has the most magnificent sword, and no, you can't really do that.
Sure.
So it works for a game like Planetfall where you're all playing humans.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Martian
so humans, but even if you're a Martian, you're not like a space alien Martian, you're a human that's colonized Mars.
Right.
And so, if other games, they say, if you want to look differently, you need to costume differently.
Okay.
So if you have sores on your face, you got to get your liquid latex out and make sores all over your face.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fun, and there's some really, really gross looking makeup jobs out there. I think
LARP aside.
I think one of my other favorite things, I think mechanics, there's a balance.
Okay.
You kind of have to have mechanics to help guide things. Like, how do you determine in combat whether your character is going to die, or if you hit your character, what determines that they're going to die? Now, there are some Nordic folks that'll just say, well, you just decide when you're going to die. And
interesting.
I guess it works if nobody cares about winning. Nobody cares about looking awesome, or they want to die awesomely.
Right.
But sometimes, you got to have a hit point system, or you got to have a touch-based system.
Sure.
So that, there's no dispute about whether you're dead or not.
Okay. Courtney, what kind of rule systems do you like? Where do you like your simplicity?
I like it very simple to get into because I am just starting out.
Okay.
Something that is pretty much pick up and play. Here's your weapon. The hit point system is what I like the best right now because it's the easiest thing. If I get hit on the arm, chances are I don't have the use of that arm for the rest of the game or until combat resets or I get healed. Yeah. Just things like that are very simplistic, but there's a chance for a lot of other stuff to happen too. Like I like drama.
Okay.
Too, because to me I'm a ham. I wouldn't be in front of a camera if I weren't a ham. Hi.
Right. I think that's actually on the application to Fanboy TV is that in order to work with any of the shows, you have to.
Exactly.
Class A again.
See, you have the barbarian being classy and the merchant girl being low class.
And then your druid over there looking, yeah.
So tell me, Sean, where do you like some of your simplicity versus complexity?
Main simplicity would be just like the hit point status, if or
Combat itself.
combat status. It'd be just like hit. Okay, lose the arm. You're not in a full bleed out like in some games.
Sure.
Or if you do get hit in the chest, okay, you're in a major bleed out. That type of deal, where weapons or weapons kind of merge together. That type of deal. That's something that really helps. It's like the Nerf guns with the buffer weapons. Those type of deals. Maybe not as strong as each other, but still works together to where it still makes something part of the game.
So one of the annoying things about like games like Nero or Heroic or DR that have point-based systems is you can stab someone to death in the foot.
Yes.
Like you could just stab them repeatedly in the foot, and when they run out of hit points, they're dead from being stabbed in the foot.
Yeah, and that would be like one of the ones I will not like.
Well,
if you're being
but they would have other. They may have other rules that while everybody's going to have a bizarre rule here and there. But there've got to be other things going on with a system like that really pull people into it, I would imagine.
That make it worth you can get stabbed in the foot 20 times and die, versus just if you're being stabbed in the foot 20 times, why don't you just kick the bugger?
Maybe it's not that you die so much, is that your foot really hurts and you got to leave the game and take a break.
Or your foot just. Oh, sorry. Go.
Yeah, or like skills. So for example, if you're trying to avoid a shot from a bullet, you have to use the skill avoid. But if you're trying to avoid a hit from a sword, you have to use the skill parry.
Okay.
But you can't use either avoid or parry if someone's throwing spells at you. You have to use mind resist for that.
And in your description of a WYSIWYG type format, you can use either if you can actually get the heck out of the way.
Right. You can dodge if you can dodge.
Right. I've looked at doing a little game designing myself. I've looked at a whole lot of areas where I like simplicity versus complexity, and I think a game can be too far in either direction. I think for LARPs especially, anything that has a flow to it, I really like being simple. So combat has a flow, it should be simple. Using skills in game while you're trying to get on with the story should have a flow and be simple. But I really like the ability to also have a complex side of things where character design may be a little more complicated on how you want to do things because that's off the field. Or if you have a game that has downtime actions, perhaps those can get a little more complex so that you can actually do more stuff, but it's not going to impede the gameplay.
Well, and speaking in favor of rule systems, I have a lot of skills with my Dystopia Rising fighter that makes me a much better fighter than I actually am.
Okay.
So, if somebody actually hits me, but I don't want to take that hit, I can declare parry.
Okay.
So it makes me a much cooler fighter than I am in real life. Like, if I went on Amp Guard, this guy would kick my butt. So, I've fought with Amp Guarders, and they pretty much kick my butt. But with all the skills, it makes me a much better fighter in the game.
Neat. Well, but let's look at skill. I know we've put a lot of emphasis on fighting, but when it comes down to skills and things, What kind of skills do you like to see non-fighting? What kind of skills enhance your play?
Sabotage and what was it? Trade from Planetfall. Those two are real fun. Pretty much the trade is for downtime. Where I
Okay.
can trade off items and
So
get
being able to bring other stuff into the game, that's always a beautiful one.
And then sabotage is where it allows me to, since I'm level 2 in it, allows me to mess with computers and things like that to where
Okay.
they might not function as right.
To break in other stuff and
Or
things.
into
Okay.
the weaponry and
Okay.
And one of the things about Dystopia is because of the skill system, you're very useful even if you're not a fighter. There's the support classes. So when you're a fighter, you go out and you fight, and your armor gets hit and it gets broken. You have
Okay.
to take your armor up to a tinker, and the tinker will repair your armor, use their
And some
repair
other
skill.
craft type skills.
Yeah.
I love craft type skills.
They can repair your armor. They can upgrade your armor, give you better armor. You can have someone who will, make you healing potions.
Sure.
There's all sorts of really cool, really useful things. When your mind points are all gone, that's the ones that feeds your skills.
Right.
Then, there's someone can entertain you or can cook you a meal, and you can eat that or be entertained.
As much as I like some of the fighting, and I've for long been in fighting type games. I really like games where you don't necessarily have to pick up a weapon and still get to interact, because you get a whole lot more folks being able to interact. Well, that's the time we have at the moment. Stick around for more adventures in LARPing. Next time on Name That Smell.
burning heart.
Hey, welcome back, Adventures in LARP fans. I'm Chris Glover with Matt Griffith, and we have today Flavio Faz here hanging out with us, watching some movies. And we just finished watching a LARP movie called Screw It, I'll Play Make Believe. It was kind of a short documentary style movie following a couple of characters from a couple of different games and kind of giving it an overview of LARP. What did you guys think about it?
You first. I thought it was really true to life. I thought the interviews were really good, in that they weren't especially professional, but the people felt they seemed to be pretty comfortable in front of the camera, and they had some honest things to say. And overall, I liked it. I thought it was a really good representation of LARP without stretching it into a 2-hour movie, which in this case I don't think was necessary. It was a nice, easy to watch, hours film. I can find a lot of good things to say about it. What do you think?
It was pretty good. It was, as far as representation of LARP people, it actually did a pretty good job of not making it look too silly.
Yeah, it is really easy to make LARPers look foolish from the outside, and I think
Right.
they did a really good job.
Yeah, they kept it pretty even, and there wasn't too much of craziness or overacting or anything like that. They kept it to the facts for the most part.
Yeah, I would have to jump on that same bandwagon with you guys. With any organization, you're going to have a wide variety of people, but it seems like every time that I've seen any sort of a documentary on LARP, that maybe it's the way it's cut, or maybe it's just the people that end up in front of the camera, but it always seems like the folks that you see on camera are not necessarily the folks that you'd want to hang around with for a weekend.
Yeah.
And it seems a little off-putting when the whole idea of LARP is that it is a really fun thing to hang around for a weekend. And so it gives it sort of a different perspective there. I also like that the folks that they did talk with, so the other thing that I see a whole lot of variation in LARP is that some people are just there to play and not necessarily there to get as immersed, and they'll do like the least amount of costuming, the least amount, just whatever they really need to do to be allowed to play with everybody else. And this movie actually got with some of the folks that actually put some effort into it. I really like that they were talking with orcs that actually found orc fang teeth and were wearing it all weekend long. They had a couple of the shields and equipment were very pretty.
That skull one
I
was
would,
nice. Yeah.
I would watch it again just to take some notes on some of their equipment there. But even then, when it switched over to the theatrical type LARP that was done in a modern setting, you still had folks that
Everybody made an effort, and
everybody
definitely had
made an effort.
a costume to reflect their character.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But,
the wedding LARP was a little bit more. If you didn't know it was a LARP, they could have just been having a party or something. And
Sure.
The GMs were there, but they were kind of unobtrusive in the film anyway.
Yeah.
You know, but it was. I wasn't sure what system they were playing, but it seemed like it would have been interesting to be in it.
I think it was some sort of homebrew system for the theatrical LARP. I thought that was really interesting because I don't have a lot of experience in theatrical or that style of LARP. So having a view of that was interesting. I don't know that it's necessarily something that I would be as interested in playing myself. I'm definitely more for the live combat LARP. But I liked how they made distinctions and gave equal time and showed different kinds of LARPs. At least these two different styles of LARPs as examples in the film. That was really interesting and gave a broad spectrum of views.
Right. And at the same time, even when they chatted with people outside of LARP, they, and with some of them at their employment and whatnot, it was still that this was a wide variety of people. It gave kind of a spectrum of here are the kinds of people that are playing this, but not just, here are folks that are gamers and what they might do during the day, but here are folks that are, in some cases, professionals or managers or not, as the case may be. But it showed sort of a broad brushstroke of who you might end up seeing, and that's one of the extra things that I like about LARP is that you end up with a group of folks that, if not for that game, would probably not do other activities together,
Yeah.
and may never end up crossing paths. But then when they get onto the LARP field, a lot of things are equalized, and they're all part of this other realm of activity.
Yeah, I like that it showed that there is definitely community involved. And I mean, they actually, they pack up their trucks and they traveled a good distance to go to this big group meeting. So I mean, there's not just little pockets; it's everywhere.
Right.
And they
Right.
gather, and it's an outdoor activity for the fighting LARP anyway. And and
I did get the feeling. Now, this documentary was filmed in Los Angeles, and the combat LARP was Realms of Conquest. I don't know if that's a big thing there, but I noticed that their combat LARP have regular meetings and a broad sweeping campaign, where the theatrical LARP is just a one-shot, one-day thing. So the combat LARP had an opportunity to develop characters more and develop costumes and get more equipment, and they looked better.
Yes.
They looked badass.
They did.
Yeah, there was clearly money spent to be out, rented. I'm assuming some sort of state park or forested area where they played all night long, as opposed to somebody's backyard, which is somebody's backyard.
Right. Yeah, well, the theater LARP is a lot more like improv.
Yeah,
It's more
yeah.
improv than the combat LARP. Because the improv, you're given a situation, okay, this is how you're going to react, and you react how you want your character to react.
One thing that I think that they hinted at with the theatrical LARP that they didn't really get into is that, especially at the beginning, people were able to do certain activities, and they had a little bit of swapping out of items
Yeah,
on cards written down,
Right.
and so it seemed that I think the idea was that as the game progressed, several days in game time, but simply a couple of hours in playtime, that some of those supplies were dwindling, and they were having to work together to be able to use what each other had. And I think that it hinted at doing that. I think that would have been a little more. It would have been nice to see a little more of what they were doing and how they were having to work together. As it was, we saw a little bit of argument and even, what, spoiler alert, character death?
But yeah, they didn't really go into how the game was played or what the rules were. I see why. I don't think that was really the focus of the documentary so much as showing the experience of these real-life people jumping into their let's pretend characters. The rules are sort of secondary to that.
Well, sure, not even just the rules, but I think it's just a little more of how they're interacting and using those things. But all in all, I think we all liked it. It was definitely a good movie, definitely something to check out in the realm of LARP. We're going to move on with the show now, and thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more.
Ladies and gentlemen, when I'm out LARPing in the field, fighting all day long, my weapons will break down. Sometimes I get injuries, and that's when I call on Crazy Carl's duct tape. It's weatherproof, it holds up to the stresses and strains of a day in LARP. I can fix my weapons and my elbows and knees and get back out on the field as fast as possible. Crazy Carl's duct tape for all your repair needs.
Welcome back to Adventures in LARPing. This is Chris Glover. I'm Courtney Maynor, and this is Sean Keys.
Hello.
We're back with our spotlight, this time on Mystic Crossroads. So what can you tell us about that?
Well, Mystic Crossroads happens to be a favorite of mine. Why? Because I helped write it. So Mystic Crossroads is a boffer-style fantasy LARP. We are using padded weapons to simulate combat. It is fantasy. There is magic. It's set up in a way that you have quite a bit of skills and things that you can do. It's definitely more enticing role play. And so it is more often a role play style game. There can be combat involved, and I like it when there is. But I think that's what some people, if you're looking at a LARP experience and you're wanting to do something more in the way of combat, I don't know that this is necessarily something that's going to be up your alley.
More fantasy based, more over what the Amp-Guard won. So this is more towards role playing style, but still keeping with the fantasy feel of it, if I'm right.
Sure. Yeah. It is, and there will be. So being a role play, there are story lines that are running through different games. So as the story starts, it'll keep on going. But at the same time, it's player driven. So if the storyline is essentially taken over by the players because everybody decided to go do something else, then when the story picks up again, it's going to pick up on what the players were doing, which can be kind of neat if you're a player and you're into driving story and letting it go where it flows. I can tell you it's a little maddening for folks that are running the game to figure out, because we can plan an entire year worth of games and then partway through, whoa, this isn't going to work. We're doing something else. So from a new player perspective, Mystic Crossroads isn't played in very many places. It is something that's newer, that's only available in certain areas, or there are only groups in certain areas. It is also something where the rule book isn't freely available online yet. It is available online for purchase. It is available in print for purchase. And you wouldn't necessarily need more than one copy if you're worried about budget or that sort of thing. The books aren't totally expensive. And they do tell you some things about hints about starting your own group. And things like making your own costuming and stuff if you're starting from scratch, which is kind of nice. But if you're wanting to get it and hop onto a local group that's playing it, you may be hard pressed to find one at this point.
Unfortunately. Yeah, I know that the reason I'm getting into LARPing is because I did meet up with your group at one of the cons that you were at. So
We have done
you
a
met
few
him.
demos here at some of the cons. So if you're not to give it away, but we film in the Central Texas area. And so we hit up some cons in the Central Texas area. And so if you happen to see us, you're definitely, we try and do some demos of things, even if it just ends up being some of the fighting and stuff. I know that you were giggling over there on the end.
Hey,
We went
he
to
likes
just the
to beat
wrong
people
con,
up.
and we ended up seeing Sean. I don't know what we were doing. No.
I think it was Chimerica.
Yeah, it was
Chimera-
one down
Chimera
San
Con.
Antonio.
Yeah, what happened was it was supposed to be like a group of wizards, a sheriff with his deputies, and a church of priests. in
Sure,
it.
sure.
And I started going around saying that the deputies are have a curse or something on them. So I made one of them quiet as I stabbed her, put her against a building, and just said she's sleeping. Rezzed her afterwards and said, nope, she's fine. She's fine. She's all good. I got thrown in jail.
Sean ran with his own storyline. But one of the nice things about the game is that you can run with your own storyline, and it may just be something that's fun for you, and it may turn into something that's bigger for everybody else, as all sorts of people. In that particular one were either imprisoned or laying out on the ground. As far as new folks coming in, if you find a group similar with other open, inclusive groups, they do meet at public parks and things like that when you can find them. And it takes just showing up and saying, hey, I want to play. And there should be extra equipment and somebody can show you how to play. Now, it is a character-based game, so you will have to take a few minutes and look and see what kinds of skills and things that you might want for your character to have. So it takes a little bit of time investment to get into it initially. But once you do that, I want to be a blacksmith. All right, well, we can do that, no problem. It's real easy to do. Once you do get in that, you can design your character in any way that you want. It's as opposed to some of the class-based games where you just play a particular class. This is skill-based, so you can pick and choose exactly what you want to do with your character.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
no. Okay, back to a question I'd asked in a previous segment. First day showing up, I don't know anything about your game other than bottles of water, because I highly suggest that no matter what you're doing, bring water.
It's all about the water.
It's Texas. Bring water. Even if you're not in Texas, bring water. What do I need to bring with me other than maybe a prettier piece of clothing?
I want to play. You show up and say, I want to play. This looks fun. It'd be nice if there was a character involvement or something. You had something that you may think about. Say, I kind of want to play this. Would be cool, but not even necessary at the beginning.
You can just kind of play around and then maybe get a feel for your character as it develops.
Sure. All right. Well, we are definitely running out of time here at the moment, but we will be back for more. Stay tuned for Adventures in LARPing and come back and see us as much as you can.